for now, let's focus on this story. Coming through earlier on in the day, police have confirmed that Nigerian televangelist and pastor of the Jesus Dominion International Church, Timothy Omotoso, has been arrested on charges of contravening the Immigration Act. Omotoso was arrested in Mdantsane in the Eastern Cape this morning. Last month, the High Court in Gqeberha acquitted Omotoso and his then co-accused Lusanda, Sulani and Zukiswa Sitho. This after finding them not guilty on 32 charges, including rape, sexual assault and human trafficking. Let's get more on the arrest of the televangelist. I'm joined now by SABC News' Lerato Fekisi, who is in Gqeberha for us. Lerato, good afternoon. So this news coming through this morning and shocking quite a number of people, in fact, quite shocking many of us, the rearrest of Timothy Omotoso. We are gathering now that it has to do with immigration violations. What can you tell us?
Absolutely, Tulasizo. We just got a confirmation now from the Department of Home Affairs that the arrest of Televangelist Timothy Omotoso follows a rejection of application Omotoso made to the Department of Home Affairs to declare him as a prohibited citizen. Now, you remember, Tulasizo, that Omotoso made an application to the High Court for the High Court not to declare him a prohibited citizen. And then the High Court said that they can't rule on that. In fact, it must be done by the Department of Home Affairs and the minister, to be precise. And the minister then made a decision that she's going to stick by a decision that the Omotoso is a prohibited person, and her decision and her standing by the decision means that now Omotoso is illegally in the country. So on Monday he's going to appear in East London at the commercial crime court there, where he's going to be facing charges of contravening provisions of the Immigration Act, and that's where things stand currently now concerning Pastor Timothy Omotoso.
What do we know, Lerato, about the circumstances around his arrest? He was in Mdantsane, but I'm seeing some pictures being circulated. Just for clarity, what do we know factually about how it happened?
What we know factually, Tulasizo, is that he was coming out of a church service that was taking place in Mdantsane. If you remember, there was quite a huge media row over him having a crusade just a couple of months after he was acquitted on all charges was facing during his court case. And the mayor of BCM declared that he would not be allowed to hold any crusades in Lusanda. But if anything, last week we saw on social media how, in fact, he had a crusade, and even this morning he was apprehended coming out of a church service, and that's when he was apprehended and taken and in custody now at a prison in East London. So that's what we know for now. When I was speaking actually to Lasizwe, to one of the state lawyers earlier on, just asking him, is someone like Timothy Omotoso allowed to conduct crusades after he was acquitted? He said that Omotoso is allowed in terms of living his life and allowed to perform whatever it is he wants to perform. But I think the issue now is, like we said earlier on, an application that he made to prevent him from being declared a prohibited person, and now the minister ruling that in fact he is a prohibited person, and then her decision now leading to him being declared officially now by the Minister of Home Affairs that he's illegal in the country, and that's right now he's been apprehended and he's been held in custody in East London, where he'll appear in court on Monday. But logistics behind his arrest were that he was coming out of a church service this morning when he was arrested, probably what was probably a early morning prayer or overnight prayer, apprehended this morning at 5 a.m. in East London. And
Lerato, you covered that trial quite extensively, and many people will recall that at the end of the trial, part of what was said by officials, I can't pinpoint at this point who exactly said it, but I remember it at the time, and you will have heard it too, that he was going to be deported within a matter of hours, if not days, at that point of his acquittal. Do we have any idea why it has taken this long to come to this conclusion by the minister that he is a prohibited person and now faces the very same prospect that had been promised weeks ago?
Yes, on the day that Omotoso was acquitted on all charges that he faced during his case, we spoke to the NPA spokesperson in the Eastern Cape, who confirmed that there were plans to deport Omotoso. Didn't really give time frames to Lasizwe as to when he was going to be deported, but it sounded like something was going to be done urgently. We then had tried numerous times to get a hold of the Home Affairs to try and get a confirmation if Omotoso indeed had left. And only, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we got a confirmation from the Home Affairs that in fact he hadn't been deported and there were still processes in place to try and ensure that he does get deported. So we are now aware that he wasn't deported because he was having church services in East London, which is confirmation that he wasn't. But not too sure exactly, Thulasizwe, as to why it has taken this long to deport him and the reasons why he was still in the country despite him now being declared as illegally in the country.
Yeah. So where does this leave us, Lerato, from the reporting and reporting work that you've been doing around? The NPA has been doing some work, extensive work, to try and pour through the judgment that came through in that trial and see if there are avenues they would want to pursue, possible avenues of raising a question of law on appeal. Where does this leave us with that process? What are you hearing about how far that process is and whether it would be impacted by this?
The process is going to continue, and I spoke to the state lawyer, Joel Caesar, this morning. He did confirm that, like they released a statement a month ago, that an expert team of legal experts has been put together by the NPA who are going to begin to look at the judgment, and they're going to appeal it, confirm that they're going to appeal the judgment. But in terms of the time frame as to when the appeal is going to be done, I am aware that they are currently sitting with the judgment, but not able to give us time frames as to when that appeal is going to be done, and then also not too sure now with Omotoso being arrested how then ties that into that, but they said that as soon as they have a specific date as to when they're going to appeal and as to also how that links to the deportation or possible deportation of Omotoso, it's still not clear as to how these two now are going to correlate now that he's been held in custody. Perhaps we'll hear on Monday when he appears in court exactly what the charges mean. Do they mean that he must be deported automatically or within a specific time frame? And then obviously the state will then reply to that to say that they are planning to appeal like they've said, and then perhaps ask for him to remain in the country or say that they'll continue the appeal even in his absence.
And Lerato, are we hearing anything at this point by way of reaction from any of the quarters that had an interest in the conduct of the trial against Timothy Omotoso, just to the news of his rearrest?
Yes, this morning we got to speak to various people, I think just community members here in Gqeberha. You understand, obviously, in Gqeberha there's a lot of public interest in the story, and people generally were very much excited of his arrest. A lot of people dissatisfied with how the NPA handled the case that led to all 32 charges against him being dropped. So generally, from whether you speak to the ANC Women's League, you speak to the Youth League, or you speak to members of AZAP who are also in the forefront in supporting the victims, generally very happy about the outcomes of Omotoso being arrested, but also just saying that they need to hear exactly what's going to happen in court on Monday, whether this means there's going to be another trial or that it's just going to be a matter of him being deported back to his country of origin, which is Nigeria. Yeah.
And lastly, Lerato, in the intervening period between his acquittal and now his rearrest, there had been that period of controversy, right? About, for instance, him being able to use facilities in the Buffalo City area for some of his services and sermons. Tell me about that.
Yes, the Jesus Dominion International Church, literally a month after Omotoso was arrested, released this huge poster of Omotoso standing as like a godlike figure in the poster with his hand lifted up, speaking of evangelism crusade that's going to be held, with Omotoso was going to obviously lead that. And then on social media there was a huge uproar as to say, you know, how was someone who perhaps was found guilty by the public because he was acquitted on all charges by the court is now allowed to go and hold a crusade in East London. And remember the mayor of BCM, Princess Faku, coming out very strongly to say that no venue in East London will be used by Jesus Dominion International to hold any conference of or any crusade by Omotoso. But ironically, Thulasizwe, just last week, also circulating on social media, we saw a venue in East London currently being used by Omotoso where a crusade was held. And like I said to you, even this morning when he was apprehended, was coming out of a church service. So we're not too sure from what Princess Faku said to when a crusade was held last week to when he was arrested this morning, where the broken cord was, because if anything, it seems like there are crusades happening in East London where people are attending. Omotoso is leading them. His church is on the forefront of that despite the BCM leadership saying that there won't be crusades held there. But we are aware, especially from what we saw pictures on social media circulating, that in fact crusades in East London are taking place where Omotoso is leading and evangelizing people in that BCM.
Right, that's a very live and developing story there. As and when developments come through, you can count on Lerato Fekisi there of the SABC News team to keep you updated. She's watching it very closely.